What secret you can't tell your parents? Story 1. This is the first Christmas I won't be spending with my family. So my parents have been shipping my girlfriend and me a bunch of packages. The other day, our doorbell rang, and my girlfriend went outside to see an older woman in a baseball cap getting into her car and driving off. On our doorstep was a Christmas popcorn tin wrapped in a grocery store plastic bag. It wasn't addressed to anyone. There was no label indicating who it was from, and while it had a plastic seal around the top, it looked old and not very tight. Since my girlfriend works in law enforcement, her immediate reaction was, what if it's a bomb? Poison? Something else? We decided to err on the side of it not being a bomb and opened it in the garage. It turned out to be full of popcorn and nothing else. Even then, we were still suspicious, so we threw out the popcorn but kept the tin. I noticed fine print on the inside of the lid indicating the name of the company it was from, so I gave them a call. It was a small local business, and I ended up chatting with the lady who delivered it. Apparently, she thought she was supposed to deliver it anonymously. Turns out my mom had sent me the popcorn, and when the delivery lady asked if she should say who it was from, my mom didn't reply for a few hours. So the lady decided to just drop off an unmarked tin in a plastic bag. My mom has been struggling with all these restrictions and with me not visiting, so telling her that I threw out her gift because the delivery lady made a poor decision would make her feel awful. Now my girlfriend and I must stick to the story that the popcorn was delicious and take that lie to our graves. Story 2. Hey mom and dad, I'm truly unhappy. I hate my life so much, and you're not making it any easier. You never see me as a person with my own wants, needs, and ambitions, just someone who exists to work for you. Someone who does your paperwork, cares for my siblings, attends their parent-teacher meetings, cleans, drives you around, and translates for you. It's fine. I've decided to give up on living for myself so I can support you, and I don't expect any thank yous. But please, at the very least, don't tell me that I do nothing for you. I've given up so much. I'm still in my early 20s, but I'm already burning out. I've decided I won't have kids, maybe not even a real relationship. It doesn't feel like I have the mental capacity for either. That realization stings because, for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to adopt 2 kids. That's how I saw my future. But at this point, I don't think I can care for another person. I don't love you, and you know that. The resentment from my past is still there. The days you hurt us, the times you told us how little we meant to you. I remember the belt, the hot water, the punishments in the shower, and the extra beatings just for crying. I was ready to let go of that resentment, to move on, because I can see you're trying now. But it's too late. You still don't understand the extent of the suffering you caused me and my siblings. I'm not happy, and if I ever decided to live my life on my own terms, you'd probably disown me. Maybe worse. You don't care about me or everything I've done and sacrificed for you. You only care about what others think of you, even if it costs us our happiness. I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. I need a way out. And one more thing. Do you remember how often I wet myself as a kid? Turns out it was probably because of trauma. My cousin hurt me back then, violated me. That might have been why, but I never told you. I just got beaten even more for it. I'm still here. I'll still be here. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for many things, but I'm just so exhausted and so unhappy. Story 3. I'll never tell my dad that he's a burden. That would probably push him over the edge. I was granted legal guardianship of him in my early 20s after my mom and sisters walked away. That's a young age to take on something this heavy. No one my age understood. There were little to no resources on what I was supposed to do next. It's been a tough journey. He's finally in a safe place now, but there's still so much to handle. His finances, his care, on top of trying to live my own life. The rest of our family believes I should have just abandoned him, but I could never do that. Despite all the awful things he's done, that's not who I am. Edit to add, this was just a knee-jerk kind of comment. I didn't expect it to get much attention. I've removed a few details that might have identified me. Still, it's heartwarming to know I'm not alone. And for anyone struggling with psychiatric, cognitive, or physical challenges, please know that this doesn't make you a burden to those who love you. There's so much more to my father's story that led us to this point. It can be hard to love someone, but that doesn't mean I'll give up. Story 4. I wish I wasn't a caregiver. I love my mother and will always be there for her as best as I can. But sometimes it feels horribly unfair that she got sick and I had to lose my youth because of it. She had her 20s. She got to work, be young and happy, travel, marry my dad, and have a child. Sometimes it feels like I'm not allowed to do anything because I had to stay and take care of her. Only in the past couple of years since being with my boyfriend have I started claiming even a tiny scrap of independence. I got my first job at 27, and I felt so embarrassed being so far behind everyone else. I'm also angry at her for picking petty fights with her family and cutting herself off from her support system. That left me as the only person in her life, and the weight of that responsibility is crushing. I'm terrified of how bad things will get as she grows older and frailer. Once I move out, I don't want her to live with us. It sounds awful, but I feel like our relationship will be so much better when we aren't roommates. If I have to be her sole caregiver in her old age, I seriously feel like I'll sink into depression, and I have no one to talk to about this. I can't even tell my boyfriend. I don't want him to think I'm a horrible, selfish person. Story 5. They make me sick. I'm embarrassed by them and make every excuse to avoid them now that I'm older. Every single time they saw anything negative about Western culture, I had to listen to the same speeches. This is why our beliefs will take over the world soon. Or their favorite, Barack Obama is secretly one of us, because a black person couldn't possibly be smart enough to become president otherwise. There was so much other toxic behavior. If my white friends from school came over, my parents would be the nicest people imaginable to them. But the moment they left, I had to scrub the dishes properly because, according to them, my friends had made everything impure. Story 6. I know my dad isn't my biological father, but I don't think either of my parents knows. I found out a long time ago after donating blood for the first time. The clinic sent me a pamphlet with information about my blood type, which happens to be pretty rare. I did some research and discovered that for me to have this blood type, at least one of my parents would have to share it. But neither my mom nor my dad has it. Unfortunately, my parents divorced years ago after both had affairs. My mom has struggled with mental health issues for a long time because of terrible things that happened to her in her childhood, which makes me hesitant to ask if she knows the truth. I worry that bringing it up could send her into a spiral. But now I'm engaged. We're talking about kids, and I need to know if there are any genetic health issues I should be aware of. It's a complicated situation, and I have no idea what to do. Story 7. My mom is an absolute nightmare. She has at least one undiagnosed mental health disorder, and my sisters and I, despite being completely unqualified to diagnose anything, suspect some combination of bipolar depression mixed with a personality disorder based on what we've read. Growing up with her as a mother was rough. We didn't fully realize it at the time because it was our normal, but she was extremely difficult to live with. She provided for all of our needs and sometimes even went above and beyond, but it always felt like it came with strings attached. Sure, we got more for Christmas than we even asked for, but you bet she would hold it over our heads for the next year. Some fun highlights from my childhood include telling us multiple times while driving that she wanted to wrap her car, with us inside, around a tree. Her catchphrase being, "Life sucks, and then you die." Taking every opportunity to complain about my dad in front of us, subtly turning us against him. This was even stranger considering he's a genuinely nice guy, incredibly loyal to her, and they're still married. When I was around 9, she would tell me that one day I'd be fat like her and that I couldn't wear certain clothes because they made me look bigger. I was a completely normal weight for my age, making us clean our rooms, then getting visibly upset if we tried to throw things away, only to get mad at us again for having messy rooms. Repeat cycle forever, feeding us McDonald's multiple times a day, several times a week, just to play Monopoly or collect specific toys. If she didn't get the toy she wanted, she made my sisters and me go back up to the counter and ask for a different one. When she found out I had been intimate with my boyfriend, now husband, she had a full meltdown in the middle of a Wendy's and then refused to speak to me for 4 months, sneaking shopping bags inside the house and making us lie about them so my dad wouldn't know she had been spending money, never hugging us or showing affection in any way. Now that I'm an adult with my own family, I'm absolutely terrified of becoming her. I still struggle with our interactions, and the way she acts around my kids makes me anxious. It's even put a strain on my marriage because my husband didn't grow up making excuses for her behavior like my sisters and I did. He doesn't understand why I still let her get away with things, and honestly, he has a point. but my sisters and I go along with it because we don't want the drama. Some of her most recent antics include begging to have my boys overnight, only to text me the entire time about how hard it was, and then making my sister come over to help her. Stealing pictures of my kids from Facebook, printing them out, and displaying them at work like she's Grandma of the Year. I'd gladly send her pictures if she just asked, but she doesn't. She just wants the attention, not the actual time with them. I have 2 boys and don't plan on having more, but she keeps making weird comments about me needing another baby, despite barely spending time with the kids I already have, resenting my husband for no reason other than the fact that I prefer spending time with my own family over her, buying my kids massive amounts of junky toys that break almost immediately, thinking that showering them with 100 gifts will make them love her the most. What they'd really appreciate is quality time, but she doesn't understand that. I specifically asked her not to take my kids to McDonald's. She took them twice in a single day and laughed in my face. I have depression, and during one particularly rough time when I reached out for help, she threatened to call CPS on me. My kids were completely fine, well cared for, and I had my husband's full support. I was just asking for a little extra help. After that, I cut her off for 6 months, and she acted like I was the villain, randomly buying things for my kids just so I'll feel like I owe her. Anytime we've confronted her about getting professional help, she refuses. Then sometimes she'll call or text saying she's driven 2 hours away and hopes she crashes or drives her car off a bridge. Story 8. I have serious mental health struggles. I will probably never be able to be in a relationship or care for children because of this. I can barely hold down normal friendships or stay in touch with family most of the time. My parents don't believe that mental health issues exist. To them, struggling is just a sign of being spoiled, lazy, or not trying hard enough to pull yourself together. But I literally can't always tell the difference between real memories and things I have dreamed or imagined. I get caught up in my own thoughts for months at a time, isolating myself and convincing myself of the most irrational things. I've been alone all my life because I can't connect with others, and my anxiety makes me think people are out to get me. I also constantly feel like a catastrophe is about to happen. I focus so much on the worst things I see on the news that it drains the people around me. I've wanted to disappear since I was 8 years old. When I was younger, people told me it would get better as I grew up. It never did. It actually got worse in my 20s. My parents could have easily seen the signs if they had been open to it. But whenever I tried to tell them about my struggles, they either punish me for being weak or say, "It's like that for everyone. Stop complaining." Or worse, "I don't understand where we went wrong. Did we make life too easy for you?" I did not have an easy childhood. Anxiety, depression, delusions, isolation, and struggling to connect with anyone at school made sure of that. Story 9. I doubt anyone will see this so late, but it feels good to get it off my chest. I can't tell my parents that I resent them for having my siblings. Both of my siblings have severe disabilities and will need full-time care for the rest of their lives. I love them so much, and none of this is their fault. I don't blame them in the slightest. But the reality is, when my parents are gone, I'll be the one taking care of them. That means I will never truly have my own life. I've known since I was 8 that I would have to take care of my brother. And then when my sister was born, it quickly became clear that I would have to take care of her too. My parents made sure I understood from a young age that my future had to be built in a way that allowed me to care for them. I've never moved far from home because my mom already needs help managing everything. My parents never realized that the pressure they put on me was part of the reason I eventually flunked out of college. Carrying the weight of setting up a perfect life so I could provide for my siblings became unbearable. It's also why I always said I didn't want kids. I knew I would already have 2 people to care for, but I would just tell people I didn't like kids to avoid judgment. Now I'm married to someone incredible, someone who loves my siblings, is amazing with them, and supports me completely. We have 2 kids and a third on the way, and I've gone back to school. My husband and I have even started making plans for my siblings' future with us. Knowing I have him by my side makes things easier. Seeing my sister adore my kids and watching them adore her back helps too. But no matter what I do, I will never have a life of my own. And that's because of my parents' choice to have 2 more children after me. Story 10. Neither my sister nor I plan to speak to them once we leave. We're tired of the harsh punishments, tired of the constant chaos, tired of everything that comes with our dad. Our stepmom is okay, except for one thing. Everything in our house is a competition. Everything. and we are all punished just for acting our age. I don't hate them for being Trump supporters. I'm not one, but that's not the issue. I do hate them for their racism, their conspiracy theories, their anti-Semitism, their ableism, their homophobia. My sister and I are both LGBTQ+, and everything else they have personally put us through. I'm done with being ignored. I've been in band, musicals, FFA, you name it. They have never come to a single performance or event. Not once. My other sister's done too. She's tired of constantly being called slurs just because she has the occasional brain fog. We're leaving, and when we do, we won't be looking back. Story 11. I'm gay, non-binary, and an atheist. My parents are extremely religious and extremely out of touch with reality. Fortunately for them, they're just sane enough and wealthy enough to mask it. So to the outside world, they and our family come off as normal. But they're not. Leading up to the U.S. legalization of same-sex marriage, my mom told us, in public, on the streets of a major city, that higher rates of drug addiction were God's punishment for gay people defying his will. My dad openly makes sounds of disgust whenever he sees LGBTQ+ representation on TV. I don't know if they suspect my brother is gay or trans and gay, but they've already tried to find a way to send him to conversion therapy, even though it's illegal in our state. They definitely don't believe being non-binary is real, but if they did, they would treat it as a mental illness. Since I partly identify with my AGAB, I won't say anything. As for my atheism, part of the reason I lost faith was because of my traumatic experiences with the church. But my dad proudly calls himself a Christian conservative and believes a Southern Baptist theological seminary is a good voting guide. He also believes there's no morality without God, meaning in his eyes, I'd be a monster. My mom, well, one time we were talking about my plans to live off campus. I pretend to be involved with a Christian student group, a condition of being allowed to go to college. So she demanded to know why I wasn't living with other Christians. I told her that I didn't think being Christian automatically made someone a better roommate. She lost it. She asked me if I even believed in Jesus and said that non-believers would always treat me worse. Guess that makes me an immoral, unnatural lunatic then. Story 12. When my parents separated, it completely messed up my life. Then they got back together. I have mixed feelings about it. I love my parents, and I'm glad they worked things out. But it feels like everything we went through because of the separation was pointless since they ended up together anyway. My childhood dog, the one I grew up with, the one I loved, died while in my dad's care. She had a bad leg and was suffering, so he had her put down. I wasn't even able to be there for her because of the separation. When my mom took my brother and me, we moved several times. Every time I started making good friends, we moved again. At one point, I ended up hanging out with people I wasn't even close with, just to have someone to talk to. Even now, I think it still affects me. We've lived here for about 5 years now, and this should be the last place we all live together before I hopefully move out in a few more years. I feel bad for blaming them, but I do. I used to be happy. I was outgoing. Making friends was easy. Now I'm sad, depressed, lonely. I have my best friend, and I'm so grateful for that. But I hope things will be better when I finally get away from my family. There's no way I could ever tell my parents this. Story 13. My brother and I heard every fight, both physical and verbal, that our parents had when we were younger. They thought they could drown out the noise by blasting loud music in their bedroom whenever they argued. One night, as another fight was about to start, I ran into my room. I heard the door slam shut, and the music started playing again. A few minutes later, my brother came into my room and lay next to me because he knew I was crying. My brother never, ever cried, but that night was different. That was the only time he held me tight and cried with me. Back then, we usually found ways to distract ourselves. We'd go to the basement, escape to another room, play video games, or put on headphones and listen to our own CD players. Even then, we could still hear our parents shouting and hitting each other. But that night, we didn't do any of that. We were just really sad and had no idea how to cope. Story 14. I don't want to live for their expectations, and I hate how they treat me. I hate children. I hate my body. I hate pretending to be someone I'm not. I hate religion. I hate family gatherings. I hate being forced to help people. I'm not a special case, yet they treat me like I'm fragile, making my struggles even worse. They've hidden so many things from me, acting as if my mental age is that of a child. On rare occasions, I get treated like an actual person, But those moments are few and far between. I've tried to come out several times, and every time I've been shut down. The worst thing I ever heard was, "If you come out, everyone will be in mourning." That was horrifying. I'm not allowed to be myself because, apparently, I need their permission to do so. If I had access to my identification and money, I would have left by now. I guess that's exactly why they keep those things from me. They know I'd leave, and they don't want that. Story 15. I secretly got married behind my family's back in college so I could qualify for family housing, which was thousands of dollars cheaper than any other option available. I had a quiet legal ceremony with my then boyfriend, thinking we'd make it official and have a real wedding after graduation. I didn't tell my family because, first, they really didn't like that boyfriend, and second, my mom would have been heartbroken if I had a wedding without inviting her, even a small one. Well, it turned out that once we started living together, we were miserable. We broke up just before graduation and had to get a legal divorce. Now, years later, I'm engaged again, this time to someone who is a much better fit for me. Once it's safe to have a proper wedding, we'll finally celebrate. But my mother would be devastated if she ever found out this wasn't my first time getting married, so I'll take this secret to the grave. Story 16. I've experienced a blackout before. Even though I don't talk about it, I think my parents suspect that I drink. They just don't know the extent of it. Usually I tell them I'm sleeping over at a friend's house, and I think they assume it's because I've been drinking and don't want to drive. That's true. But the main reason was the people I used to hang out with. We would go clubbing until 2 a.m., then hit a Mexican restaurant at 3 a.m., finally getting to bed around 4 a.m. and waking up at 10. Eventually, I developed stomach issues, unrelated to alcohol, and I told my dad that I drank at office happy hours. He took it better than I expected. But no one, except my friends, knows that I blacked out once. They took care of me, so I was fine, but I had a brutal hangover the next day. I stayed in darkness the whole time and later went to the doctor, who told me everything was fine. They just advised me to drink Gatorade to stay hydrated if I ever drank again. I don't have a drinking problem, by the way. I rarely drink, and nowadays, I don't drink at all because I've been on antibiotics for a year due to a health issue. But yeah, I can never tell my parents that I blacked out that one time. Story 17. My husband and I chose to have an abortion last year. 9 months earlier, I was pregnant, but before my first ultrasound, I started experiencing severe pain. I went to the ER, where they told me I had a tubal pregnancy. They assured me it would absorb back into my body and told me to take it easy. I was sent home. The next day, I felt like I was dying. I went back to the ER. My fallopian tube had ruptured. The marble-sized mass had grown to the size of a golf ball, tearing through me and causing internal bleeding. I was rushed into surgery. I lost my tube. Later that year, I found out I was pregnant again. For a moment, my excitement nearly made me forget how recently I had gone through that trauma. While 9 months had passed since I lost my tube, it had only been 3 weeks since I was let go from my job. It had only been 2 weeks since my husband was reduced from full-time to part-time. We were both looking for work, and by the time we found out I was pregnant, 6 weeks had already passed. We were in no position to raise another child. I got an abortion before my time ran out, and it was successful. If my parents ever found out, they would disown me for committing murder, since they believe life begins at conception. When we were trying to have a child, we were doing well. But when this pregnancy happened, our situation had completely changed. We made the best decision we could at the time. Story 18. I don't think I have any hope of pursuing my education like I wanted. I dreamed of working as a physicist, but now I feel like I'm going to be stuck in jobs I hate that barely pay enough to survive. And I blame them for it. Their xenophobia and strict rules, having to go straight home after school with little to no exceptions, barely being allowed to leave the house on weekends, made it nearly impossible for me to form lasting connections. The only people I was encouraged to spend time with were those from the same background, but they couldn't help me unless I wanted to become a taxi driver or delivery worker. On top of that, the immense pressure they put on me in school was overwhelming. I had no one to turn to when I struggled, because after-school study groups or tutoring weren't options I was allowed to take. Even in college, their influence followed me. What should have been a 2-year associate degree took me 4 years to finish, and I barely scraped by with a passing GPA. I recently moved out and now live several hours away with my SO, who, as far as my parents know, is just a friend. They also think I have another roommate who doesn't actually exist. They believe I have a stable full-time job and that I'll be able to afford to resume my education next semester without their help. The truth is, I'm working part-time in fast food, barely getting enough hours to survive. If it weren't for my SO covering most of our expenses, I wouldn't be able to make it at all. Just last month, I broke down because the weather was getting colder, and I hadn't been able to bring warm clothes when I moved. I couldn't afford to buy new ones, and my parents refused to send me any of mine unless I visited to get them myself, which wasn't an option during the pandemic. They only caved in and mailed some after I promised I'd come home for the winter holidays. But with how bad the situation keeps getting, I don't know if I can go through with that visit anymore. I'll probably delete this later. I didn't mean to write so much. This will probably just get buried anyway. Story 19. I'm never getting married, never having kids, never making use of my degree, and I probably won't live more than a few more years. I'm not depressed. There's no specific trauma behind this, and my parents didn't make any major mistakes raising me. Life simply isn't for everyone. Most people don't understand that, and they'll try to talk you out of it. But it's the truth. I've felt disconnected from others and from society's values for as long as I can remember. I never liked answering the question of what I wanted to be when I grew up, because I could never picture myself making it to adulthood. People are only kind when they want something, whether it's money, status, or something else. I've never felt truly connected to anyone. If you say you want to die, suddenly everyone swears they've cared all along, but even that is just for show. The moment you part ways, they'll never call, never check in. They don't want you alive for any particular reason. It's just what society expects them to say in that situation. Everything feels artificial, nothing has real meaning, and everything is just a burden with no real payoffs. Traditional sources of happiness, careers, family, religion, knowledge, community service, are all tainted in one way or another. There's no true fulfillment in chasing them, just more alienation and numbness. I'm not even sad about this, not angry or disappointed. It's just the simple, undeniable truth of how the world is and how people behave. If you recognize this reality and feel like you're done with life, you're not crazy. If anything, that mindset should be the default, and any deviation from it should require justification, not the other way around. But try explaining that to anyone, especially my parents. Story 20. I think I'd rather be a teacher. Among my siblings, I've always been seen as the successful one. My oldest sibling dropped out of high school, my older sisters had kids at 19 and 20 and got married, and my older brother isn't interested in college. Instead, he sleeps in, jumps from job to job, and asks for $20 every week or so, which I always give because he's my brother. My younger siblings are still in elementary school, so their futures are uncertain. But me, I've always had straight A's, worked hard, and aimed for UCLA or USC. In reality, I never knew what I wanted to major in. My dad suggested accounting, mentioning how much money accountants make and pointing out houses saying, that's the kind of house an accountant can afford. It seemed like a solid, secure path, so I went with it. After my first year of college, GCU though, I started to lose interest. I kept hearing how accounting is just an endless struggle to climb the corporate ladder, and honestly, it doesn't sound like something I'd be happy doing. Back in high school, I had a teacher who truly cared. He even wrote each of us a personal letter for graduation. He changed my life in small ways, but his influence always stuck with me. I'd occasionally think about becoming a teacher, but I never fully considered it. Now, with a year off from college due to COVID, I've had time to reflect. And the truth is, I'd rather do anything but accounting. Most likely, I'd rather teach. The problem? My parents, especially my dad, put so much effort into making sure I was prepared for college. He always joked about me buying everyone a house because I'd be so rich. The only thing stopping me from telling them is the same thing that stops so many people. Teaching doesn't pay well. It's one of those careers you have to truly love to make it worthwhile. How do I tell my parents, the ones who invested so much in my education, the ones who made sure I went to a pricey college, that I want to abandon a secure future for something I'd enjoy but might struggle financially doing? I already know my dad would argue with me about it. And it's not that I hate them or that they're bad parents. They're amazing. They've given me everything I could ever ask for. And that's exactly why I don't want to tell them. To me, it would feel like promising them the perfect birthday gift, only to turn around and throw it in their face. I don't know. This whole COVID situation has completely flipped my college plans upside down. Story 21. I'm scared of becoming them. My dad has always been emotionally distant, while my mom has always been openly emotional. They're complete opposites when it comes to parenting, and it's messed me up. They're divorced, so I live between two households, but I dread going to my dad's. Every visit turns into me getting screamed at for something, and I usually end up breaking down crying. When I was around 10, I felt like something inside me just broke. The childhood magic faded, and I lost control over my emotions. I still can't control them. My mom, on the other hand, lets her anxiety dictate her actions, which makes things difficult in a different way. Then there's school. The pressure to get straight A's has completely taken over my life. Since sixth grade, I've kept up perfect grades, and now as a sophomore in college, Sharon senior in high school, I'm still maintaining them. But it's destroyed my ability to function without stress. I barely have free time. I barely see my friends. My mom used to tell me that grades weren't everything, that I wouldn't always get perfect scores, and that was fine. But now, if I get an 80 on a hard test, she gives me a look. I've pushed myself so hard that now, if I fall even slightly below the impossible standard I've set, I feel like I've failed. The stress has gotten so bad that I think I'm losing hair because of it. And lastly, please don't judge me, but I break social distancing with my boyfriend. We met in May. My parents are high risk, and I might be, though I haven't been tested. So my mom takes COVID extremely seriously. My dad is more relaxed about it, and my stepsister barely follows social distancing at all. I just wanted some sense of normalcy. It feels unfair to my boyfriend to stay 8 feet apart with masks when we're supposed to be in a relationship. He only really sees his best friend, and there's social distancing now, so it's relatively safe. But if my mom ever found out, she would never forgive me. Story 22. That I love them. That I'm sorry for my behavior and for not making more of an effort to fix our relationship. Both my parents are gone. My dad took his own life 19 years ago. My mom died of cancer 18 months ago. I was an anxious, depressed teenager when my dad died. The last thing I ever said to him was that I hated him and never wanted to speak to him again. I got my wish. My mom and I always had a strained relationship. I regret not spending the last few Christmases with her and my brother while she was sick. I was angry and stubborn, and I hated being at her house. Luckily, I managed to make peace with her a few weeks before she passed, but I'll never get those lost Christmases back. Learn from my mistakes. Don't let your anger cloud your judgment. Learn to forgive. You never truly know how much you'll miss someone until they're gone, so don't waste the chance to make things right, for your own sake. Story 23. I've been battling depression since I was a teenager. I'm 29 now, but back then, I didn't even realize I was depressed. Looking back, it's obvious. Every morning I had to fight just to roll out of bed and force myself to school. The only thing that got me there was listening to Three Little Birds on a repeat on my MP3 player the whole way. I struggled in school and failed most of my classes. My dad was strict. He grounded me for nearly 3 years straight. As soon as I got home, I was forced to study until bedtime. No weekends out, no breaks. But it didn't help. My grades kept getting worse, and so did I. Fast forward to now, and I'm working a minimum wage factory job, barely scraping by. I've never felt more worthless. I could never bring myself to tell my mom that I sometimes think about ending it all. I feel like a burden. Every day is a struggle. The only thing keeping me here is my nephew. My mom's youngest sibling, my uncle, died around my age. They suspected it was suicide. The devastation it brought to my family was unimaginable. I can't do that to them. I can't do that to my nephew, but I'm just so tired. Story 24. My mom knows I'm bisexual. My dad's side of the family doesn't. My stepdad doesn't either, but my mom constantly puts me down for dating a guy. I have some amazing female friends, and one of them bought me a Christmas tree for my first home this year. When my mom found out, her first response was, "It's a shame she has a boyfriend." I simply replied, "I also have a boyfriend." Her response, "Grr." I don't know what the hell she meant by that. I don't know if she's mad that I'm dating a guy or something else, but being around her and my family's getting harder. I constantly feel like I have to pretend to be straight just to avoid upsetting her. She and my boyfriend have met once, but only briefly. I'm scared for her to meet him properly. I don't want her to treat me or us like garbage. Story 25. I'm 33 and I still won't tell my mom that I smoke weed almost every day. I mean, she caught me when I lived with her as a kid. She knows I've dabbled in it, and she knows I think it should be legal. But I think she believes it's a once-a-month kind of thing, when in reality it's multiple times a day. I don't give off strong stoner vibes, so it's easy to keep it from her. I'm mindful of the smell, use eye drops, and maintain a moderately successful and driven lifestyle. I exercise regularly, have a wife and children, and stay on top of my responsibilities. As long as she doesn't actually see me do it, it's not that hard to hide. But it's something I've always wanted to come clean about. My mother raised me as a single parent, and I'm her only child. Our bond is really strong because we've always just had each other. We've always been upfront and honest, and keeping this from her for so long hasn't felt right. Story 26. I will never come out as Pan. I will never tell them how many people I've dated. I will never tell them that my brother said my step-cousin Zeke likes me. I will never tell them that I love bad guys. I will never tell them that I like BDSM, NSFW content, or that I'm slightly masochistic and sadistic. I will never say how I listen to a lot of explicit music. #sickic. I will never tell them how I was bullied. I will never tell them my real opinions about anything. I will never say how my teachers feel more like parents than they do. I will never say how Sawyer's death actually hurt me. I will never tell them that I have thought about suicide. I will never tell them how my sister and I have talked about it. I will never tell them how I have nightmares almost every night when someone isn't beside me. I will never admit that I know they hate me. I will never admit that I hate myself. I will never admit that I probably won't live to see 18. I will never tell them that my brother is the closest thing to a best friend I have. And I will probably never say that. Through it all, I love them. Story 27. My grandma touched me and my twin inappropriately when we were young. It took us a while to process it, to question whether we were imagining things because we were so little. But I didn't even know what inappropriate touching was at that age. Eventually, we came to the conclusion that it really happened. I will never be able to tell my parents. My grandma is very mentally ill, schizophrenia and dementia being her main diagnoses, and she has been absent for most of my mom's life. Recently, my mom has managed to build a good relationship with her over the phone. It's so sweet to hear her say, "Okay, well, bye, mommy," like a child again. My mom is in her 50s, my grandma in her 70s. My grandma won't be around much longer, and I'd rather my mom spend the years she has left with her in peace. If I told her what happened, she would feel overwhelming guilt, anger, and sadness. Me and my twin are helping each other work through the trauma. Luckily, it isn't as traumatic since we don't remember all of it clearly. Story 28. Losing my father when I was going into my freshman year of high school completely messed me up. Not in the way most people lose a parent, but in the way where he had a massive stroke and became severely handicapped. I essentially lost the dad I knew. Hearing your father say he wishes the stroke had just killed him is hard, but watching him drink himself into a stupor every night because he was drowning in emotional pain, that was worse. Of you, Donnie, for ever offering him a beer after he had completely forgotten he even drank or smoked. The two things that contributed to his stroke in the first place. A year ago, his heart completely failed. It happened at home. I watched as my nurse X performed CPR while my mom cried hysterically, waiting for EMS to get there. The people who arrived weren't just any paramedics. They were his friends, people who had worked under him, people he had trained. R.I.P., Dad. You're finally free from the prison that was your body. I don't tell my mom how much it truly affected me because I feel like I have to be strong for her. I'm currently living at home after my ex dumped me last fall, probably because I spent the summer drinking myself into oblivion, trying to escape the storm of emotions I didn't know how to process. I hit my lowest point, the closest I had ever been to suicide. I'd thought about it since I was young, but this time it felt real. I had a complete breakdown. My mom had no idea why I was crying so hysterically until I managed to get the words out. If I had a gun right now, I would kill myself. That scared the hell out of her. She made me talk to my aunt, who works at a mental health facility. My aunt figured out that I didn't have a plan and that I was under my mom's supervision. So technically, I was safe. Depression and anxiety run in my family, and they are a bitch. PTSD sucks too. But I knew what I had to do. I had to get my life together. And I did. I just hit my first full year sober from alcohol. Weed is all I need. And I don't think I'll ever drink again. Now I'm just trying to deal with my depression and figure out what the hell I want to do with my life. I want to help people, especially kids, but I have no idea where to start. Just thinking about it gives me such bad anxiety that it's easier to just focus on raising my puppy and ignore the rest, even though I feel like I have so much to give. Maybe that's another thing. I'm 31 years old and feel completely inadequate, like I'm just wasting space. I refuse to go back to living paycheck to paycheck, but living on Cape Cod makes it hard to find a decent job without a degree. And I don't believe you need a degree to be successful. Sorry, Gramps. Yeah, it opens doors, but going $150,000 into debt isn't for me. Sorry for the rant. I haven't been to therapy in about a year, so I guess I needed that. Story 29. I wish they would just get divorced already. It's coming. I know it. They're just waiting for the right time. Honestly, I don't even understand why they got married in the first place. It seems like they were never happy together. I also wish they were better parents. They've put me and my brother through so much over the years. They never physically hurt us or starved us or anything like that. But the mental and emotional damage, I want to punch them in the face for that. They are such hypocrites, it's almost comical. They don't care about our problems or concerns. If we tell them we're upset, they just laugh it off. If we have a different opinion from them, it doesn't matter because apparently we're wrong, and there's so much more I could say, but I don't even have the energy to write it all out. So, if by some miracle my parents ever see this, and for once don't immediately dismiss my feelings, then I just want to say one thing. Do better. Story 30. Honestly, I don't talk about my life much. My mom died when I was a teenager, and my dad threw me out because I was an unwanted pregnancy. I was homeless for a while until I graduated high school. The last time I saw him in person was in 1998 when I was 30. Every time we spoke, he found a way to downplay my accomplishments, making me feel like nothing I did was ever good enough, like I was too stupid to know better. But he does that to everyone. I was no different. He's one of those people you never give ammo to. Patronizing, condescending. The kind of person who always has to be the most intelligent one in the room. I've seen him enrage people with his arrogance, then laugh at their anger. If you ever tried to agree with him, he'd make it clear. If I held any value in your opinion, I'd take that as a compliment. I had to watch him do this to others and fail before I truly understood what kind of person he was. I have no idea if he knows what I've accomplished. And if he does, I'm sure he just chuckles to himself, thinking about what a waste of potential I am for never meeting his ever-shifting expectations, always set for my own good. But the truth is, I've done things I am incredibly proud of, things that define me, and he will never know. Story 31. I feel like my friends' parents have been better parents to me than my own ever were, and when they're gone, I know I'll miss them more. I wouldn't say my parents were abusive, but they were neglectful. They never put in any extra effort when it came to me. School trips, driving lessons, extracurricular activities. None of it mattered to them. If they weren't working, they were at the bar drinking. I didn't even realize how bad it was until I lived with someone else. When it's your only frame of reference, it just feels normal. Looking back, I can only imagine how bad I smelled. My parents only did laundry every couple of weeks, so I'd just pick clothes up off my floor and wear them again. They never taught me oral hygiene or even basic self-care. So yeah, I love my friends' parents more than my own, but I could never tell them that because I don't think they even realized what terrible parents they were. Sigh. Story 32. Whenever someone asks if I like anyone, I always say no and pretend I'm just not interested in dating right now. The truth? It's because if I did like someone, my mom would go, "Ooh, you like each other," and it would ruin everything for me. I love my mom, but if I ever fall for someone, the thought of her reaction alone is enough to make me want to hide it forever. I've liked this girl since we were in second grade together. I confessed in fourth grade, but she said we should just be friends. Then in eighth grade, she told me she had actually liked me back, but didn't know how to respond at the time. We started dating, but after being friends for so long, we were both awkward as hell. Eventually, we mutually decided to just stay friends because that's what felt right. But the truth, I wanted so badly to stay together. I wanted to be there for her, to help her through everything. But I knew it was too awkward to make it work. We've stayed friends since then. She had a boyfriend, but they broke up. And me? I've been alone ever since. Not because I want to be, but because I'm too afraid to start anything. I love her so much, but I don't think I can do it. Story 33. I will always be furious at them for not seeking medical help for me when I was a child and teenager. I'm on the autism spectrum, have ADHD, bipolar depression, constant muscular tics, and extreme anxiety. There were so many signs: throat tics, involuntary head movements, extreme mood swings, sudden bursts of tears for no apparent reason, and inability to focus. Every single school report had the same comment: needs to learn to focus. How much more did they need before thinking maybe we should take him to a doctor? I didn't start seeking help until I was 22. First with a neurologist, then a psychologist, then a psychiatrist. I finally got a proper diagnosis at 33 after brain scans on a SPECT machine. I started taking prescribed medication, and that was a pivotal moment. Suddenly, I could think clearly. I didn't feel sad all the time. It was such a novelty. Before that, I was on a downward spiral, and I was only picking up speed. But my parents' attitude toward mental illness? Pretend it doesn't exist. Tell me I was just feeling sorry for myself, or that I needed to harden up. Oh, and this gem from my dad. You can't cry if you look up at the ceiling. To be fair, it actually works. Probably the only good advice he ever gave me, which is honestly pretty fucking sad. Now I have two sons. One is 10, the other 12. One has autism, the other has ADHD and extreme anxiety. Being a parent to them is a constant reminder of how much better my first 3 decades of life could have been if my parents had just taken me to a doctor, just tried to help me. On the upside, I'm a pretty good dad to my sons. I know what they're going through. I get them in a way my parents never got me. All's well that ends well, I guess. But I just cannot let go of the rage I feel toward them, especially my dad, because they didn't even try. Story 34. I love you, Mom, but sometimes I resent you for the way you handled Dad's suet after he caught you fucking another guy, the guy who turned out to be an abuser. I resent the fact that you never even considered getting counseling for your 3 kids, all under 10 years old, that you never tried to help or understand my teenage sister, the one who was most affected, before she spiraled into drug addiction. I resent that you never stopped to ask how we felt, that you never sat down and talked to us about it honestly. I had to navigate my teenage years carrying all these destructive emotions without even knowing what they were or how to deal with them. I resent you so much for all of this, but I can't tell you. Not because I don't want to, but because I don't want you to feel guilty. You had it rough, suddenly raising 4 kids on your own. You had your own ways of coping. And today I can see that you try your best to be good to us. I just cannot bear the thought of you sitting alone, crying, thinking about the past. So I'll deal with it alone, like I have since I was 25. I love you, Mom, but I hate you too. Story 35. I am a lawyer for the child welfare system, specializing in abuse, neglect, and foster care cases. My parents think I simply have an altruistic nature. While that isn't entirely untrue, a lot of my early interest in this field stemmed from growing up with my mother's bipolar symptoms. We were never placed in foster care, but when I started working for child protection, I discovered that we had been investigated. Despite that, we managed to stay together, though we were often truant and delinquent. Many of my friends weren't as lucky. They were removed from their homes. As neglect goes, we didn't have it the worst. Of course, after 20 years in child welfare, I've seen much worse cases. However, what we experienced was absolutely on par with many of the kids who were taken away. My mother grew up in a household with alcoholic parents, and neglect was something she considered normal. We were left unsupervised from a very young age. When my mom was manic, we had to hide. When she was at her lowest, we had to take on adult responsibilities. My dad's approach to parenting was simply to teach us how to defend ourselves, how to fight, even how to stab someone if necessary. I think if he had left, we would have been removed. If my sisters and I hadn't been such a strong team, things would have been much worse. We had bug-out bags, emergency plans, and backup plans for everything. This experience put me on an early path of problem solving. I learned to handle anything by thinking, I'm going to fix this, or I'll find someone who can. That's the mindset I bring to my work, helping kids not just on an individual level, but on a systemic one. I think the advantage I have over many others in this field, who may have fallen into it more by chance, is that I know these kids. In a lot of ways, I was one of them. Story 36. I own around $800 to $1,000 worth of adult items, several of which are Bluetooth and long-distance accessible. I use them to maintain relationships with people I've met in an online game. Last month, I told my parents I was staying with my best friend, who had agreed to accompany me on a trip to meet someone from that game. In reality, my online friend and I split the cost of a hotel room, and I spent the night with him. My best friend had nothing to do with any of it. I'm more eager to visit Dublin than my parents realize. Not just for the city, but because the person I have the biggest crush on lives there. He's described, in detail, everything he plans to do when we're alone. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how I'll sneak away to be with him and how I'll hide any marks or bruises from my parents. They aren't necessarily anti-LGBTQ+, but they don't support it either. I've never told them that I'm on the asexual spectrum or that I identify as pansexual and panromantic. When I was younger, they used to pry, trying to force that kind of information out of me. They've had full-blown screaming rants about how being trans isn't real, how asexuality doesn't exist, and how it's disgusting to be attracted to the same gender. My best kiss was with a girl, but they'll never know that. Story 37. Where do I even start? I mean, I could go with the kind of funny expected answers, like the fact that my girlfriend and I are into BDSM. Sure, if people found out, it would be embarrassing, but I'd survive. Or maybe the fact that I'm trans. I've tried to come out to my parents before, but let's just say I botched it horribly. They were confused, I panicked, and now we all just kind of pretend it never happened. The thought of trying again absolutely terrifies me, even though I'm out to one of my siblings and an ever-growing number of friends. Maybe I should talk about how much I hate my job, and I don't mean the casual, oh, work sucks, nobody likes working kind of way. I mean that being here feels like it actively destroys my mental health. Management is awful, my coworkers are unbearable, and half the time I feel like I'm barely tolerating it. The only reason I haven't quit is because of the pandemic. Speaking of the pandemic, I could go on about how much this entire global catastrophe has messed with my mental health and social life. Yeah, I may be an introvert, but that doesn't mean I can handle seeing the same 4 people every single day and no one else. Most of my hobbies are social, and right now that's just not an option. And yeah, I know how selfish that sounds considering the number of people who are sick, dying, or grieving loved ones. But I can't just sit at home doing nothing forever. I miss my friends, my board games, and my band. Or maybe I should talk about my degree choice. I would love to make money in this field, but lately, I've been questioning if that's even remotely possible. The industry I'm training for has been practically shut down by the pandemic. There it is again. And even though I love my classes and would love to do this professionally, I honestly can't see a clear path forward after graduation. This kind of went off topic. Oops, whether or not anyone actually reads this, thanks for letting me vent. Story 38. I'm an atheist and a Democrat. My mother, she literally uprooted her life, sold her house without a backup plan, quit her job, just to attend some televangelist Bible school in another state. An unaccredited Bible school, I should add. Her so-called degree is completely useless. She even gave away our 12-year-old family dog, the one that meant everything to her, just to go there. Now, she's been working for this guy's so-called ministry since 2016, and she's desperate to come back home. But she's broke. She has nothing. She'll have to work until she dies because she gave everything to this televangelist and his school. But hey, God will provide. She's also a die-hard supporter of a certain political figure. She was convinced he would remain in office past January 20th. She believed the election was a fraud, a scam, that it would all be overturned. I'm also child-free, and she's the reason why. She always says having kids was the best thing that ever happened to her. But I can't forget all the times she screamed in my face, all the times she hit me with a brush, all the times she vented to me like I was her personal therapist, repeating the same multi-hour rants over and over, exploding at me if I dared to contradict her. I'm terrified of being like her. I don't ever want to make a child feel the way I felt, trapped, anxious, depressed. I don't ever want to pass that cycle on. Story 39. I was a regular smoker from the ages of 15 to 23. In high school, at parties and social gatherings, it was just something I did. It started as a casual thing, but once I got to university, it turned into a crutch, a coping mechanism for stress. I knew it wasn't healthy to rely on it so much. Every time I lit one, I would think about how I needed to quit, but I let it go on for way too long. At some point in university, my relationship with smoking completely changed. It stopped being about fun and socializing and became more of an escape from loneliness and stress. That became the feeling I associated with it. I wasn't one to smoke while drinking at parties. I hated the nausea that came with it. Oddly enough, when I went home for reading week, holidays, or even summer break, I had no problem quitting for those periods. I never really had cravings during those times. So, after graduating and moving back home to start my career, I just stopped. I'd like to say I made a big effort, but honestly, it wasn't that hard. It was more of an okay, let's not do that anymore kind of decision, followed by actively avoiding it. The last cigarette I ever had was on the day of my final exam in April of last year. I don't miss it. Now just the smell makes me gag. My dad was a smoker in college too, so I doubt he would be too upset. Maybe just disappointed that I didn't learn from his mistakes or something like that. My mom, though, she'd probably lose it. She absolutely despises smoking, always has. She constantly talks about how smokers are ruining their lives and making everything around them smell because they can't control their habits. She used to say that if she ever caught me smoking, she'd kick my ass. That was just her way of getting her point across. She was never abusive, just very firm on her stance. Now looking back, I think her hatred for smoking might come from her complicated relationship with my grandfather. They disagreed on a lot of things, and I think that resentment spilled over into her view on smoking, since it was something he did constantly. He passed away suddenly about 20 years ago from a brain aneurysm, so they never had a chance to make amends. I can only assume those unresolved feelings shaped the way she parented me. Story 40. I can't tell my dad that I know what he did to my little sister when she was 11. I found out this past summer, and the moment I did, I cut off all communication with him. If I confronted him, I already know how it would go. He'd gaslight both of us, call my sister a liar, and make us feel like we're the crazy ones. And the worst part? At one point in my life, I was actually really close to him. Even after we drifted apart, him because of his alcoholism, me because of my own struggle with addiction, I still wanted the best for him. I still tried to be there for him when I could. The last time I saw him was 2 weeks before I found out the truth, and he actually seemed like he was doing better. He was clean, losing weight, eating right. He was finally sober and getting his life together. He had even started volunteering at a shelter, which gave him a place to stay so he wasn't homeless anymore. But now, if I got a call tomorrow saying he was gone, I wouldn't even blink. I'm not religious, but sometimes I find myself hoping there is a hell, just so he never truly gets away with what he did. Story 41. My mother tormented me throughout my teenage years. She manipulated my younger siblings into believing I was a problem, and even before that, she worked tirelessly to turn all of us against our father. He passed away when I was 19. When my parents separated, my mother started seeing someone new, my father's cousin. He happened to live next door, and their relationship devastated my dad. He had moved into the house he inherited from his mother, waiting for my mom and us kids to get our things together and find a new place. For context, we lived on a First Nations reserve, and by band constitution, the house had to remain in his name. That also explains why my mom got involved with one of his cousins. It was a strategic move as much as a personal one. This guy wasn't related to my mother, only to my father. I was 12 or 13 at the time and didn't fully grasp how messed up the situation was. Years later, after I became an adult, I finally understood why it drove my father to the brink. On top of that, my mother was controlling, manipulative, and relentless in trying to make us hate him. She ended up having 2 more kids with this man, my half-brothers, though I still consider them family. The truth is, I can't stand my mother. She's racist, uneducated, impulsive, controlling, and unreasonable. Being around her feels awkward. I don't like her because of everything she did in the past. She drove a wedge between me and my father, and things never fully mended before he passed. For most of my early to mid-20s, I was a complete mess, self-medicating with alcohol and drugs to cope with his death and the way I was raised. People say you need to stop blaming your parents for the way you turned out once you become an adult. I agree, but that doesn't mean I have to like or tolerate my mother. I'm 37 now for context. I can't tell her how I feel because it would create endless family drama. If I explained my reasons, everyone would just say what I already expect, that I need to stop blaming my parents for everything because I'm an adult now. I don't blame her anymore. I just don't want anything to do with her.